All right, thanks to everyone who's starting to gather. I'm Band-Aid Specialist here with HorrorRant for episode number 3 of the HorrorRant discussions. Tonight we are reviewing Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason. Callum, do you have anything to add before we start the trailer for New Nightmare?
Unobjectively, this is my favourite movie in the entire franchise. I just think it's such an astounding film that was so ahead of its time. I don't think there's been anything like it. Of course, you have Scream, which followed 2 years after, but this was really the starting point for the meta aspect of what would come in the horror genre. So yeah, all the praise for this film, all of it.
Which I think it did a phenomenal job of breaking that fourth wall barrier. But without further ado, here is the trailer for New Nightmare.
Coming from New Line Home Video, the $20 million box office smash. From Wes Craven, creator of A Nightmare on Elm Street, comes a new dimension in terror.
Miss me.
And again, sorry about the quality.
Got the effect.
The bad man's getting awful close.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare. The best horror film in years.
Almost there.
The most twisted scare fest in ages.
Keep you up.
4 stars, The New York Post. Wes Craven takes it to a new dimension, raves The New York Times. New Nightmare reunites the stars from the original, including Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon, Nick Corey, and Robert Englund.
Ever played Skin the Cat?
Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This time, staying awake won't save you.
Meet your maker.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile can be good. It just...
So, thoughts on the trailer?
Okay, so that trailer, you can already, from the get-go, you can tell it's not like any other Nightmare movie that's come before it. It's got this different feel to it, but it just looks better. It doesn't look gimmicky and cheesy. It's not relying on one-line jokes in the trailer for like giveaways of, oh, what's to come. It looks so much more professional. You can really see Wes Craven's work behind it.
So, yeah, I mean, it definitely gives you some other feels now. There are other, not even so much horror movies, but there are other thrillers, suspense movies, things like that, starting to come up in the 90s. And without looking at it, because it's been a while since I'd seen it, I believe Scream had kind of a similar feel during their, during the trailer. But nonetheless, because it was an already established franchise, something like that would be phenomenal. And I'm sure that's what drew a lot of people to it. I don't necessarily know I want to say it's my favorite film, but it's definitely an extremely high-ranking film. I mean, even from, the actual beginning of the movie, you just have a different feel that turns from like, oh, okay, there's a family, at a movie set, and it just snaps right into a nightmarish ideology.
Yeah. Even the setting for it in a boiler room, even though it's like a stage production, like the boiler room looks so well lit and it looks perfect for a start. And obviously, when you realise that she's awake, when Heather Langenkamp awakes and stuff, and you see that she's playing herself, kind of takes you by surprise in a way, because you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's not been done before, has it? Yeah.
I I don't know, at least not one that,
At least, yeah, none comes to mind when thinking of a film that's done this aspect.
but something that, something I do have to say that is awesome is that they started to peel away from that genuine hilarity that they were trying for. You didn't have this ha Freddy anymore. You had
Big, mean, scary Freddy.
legitimately something that nightmares were made of.
Well, it's a completely new entity, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's not Freddy, it's this demon who's took on this persona as Freddy. And you can tell it's so much darker. I love Freddy's makeup. I love his costume design in this one. It feels so different. Even though it's near enough the same, it's just that bit different to make it stand out, and it really helps add more levels to this character. I love the addition of a trench coat that he wears. That is fucking terrifying.
I do have to say I'm a fan, and I think what's really cool about it is that you even have Robert Englund that portrays obviously himself, but as somebody who is afraid of this
This
inspiration.
malevolent creature, yeah.
Exactly, and it's cool. It really pushes that fourth wall break that I think some of the past movies have tried before, especially even not so much tried. Let me rephrase that. Have like hinted at, but when it started to break in to the reality of Heather's life, they did it in a way that it resembled more of a psychiatric issue versus what it was in Nightmare 4, or what it was really in any Freddy's Dead, things like that, which made it work. That's the type of shit that makes it work, where
Yeah.
you're not pretty much just spitting in everyone's face.
It really adds to that as well, the fact that Wes Craven even had an acting role in it, and Bob Shea, one of the New Line cinema producers, was in it as well. I think we had one of the assistants, Sarah. She actually played herself in it as well, which is, it's just going down to the little details like that really showcase Wes Craven's thought and his talent.
But I think with that, what really makes that in itself stand out is it almost humanizes the
The characters, yeah, it makes it feel more real.
exactly. Especially in many movies, you're not getting producers, things like that. As far as anybody knows, they're in real life they're portrayed as these like backburning, hate-filled fucking people, and then now we're seeing them, and it's like, okay, this is cool because it's like we're there. Even the talk show part was kind of cool because it obviously it was staged, but at the same time it took into that consideration the busy part of Heather Langenkamp's life.
Yeah, like it really showcased the realization that these actresses go through and stuff,
Yes.
which was really nice and different. It's a more refreshing story. Obviously, you see a title as Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and you see that Heather Langenkamp's down, and you're like, oh, great, Nancy's back. But she's not just playing Nancy; she's actually playing herself, well, a fictionalized version of herself, which is, it all of the hard work she's put into this film, you could really show she gives an amazing performance.
Absolutely. Now, the one thing I wasn't entirely a fan of, but we kind of roll back into it. It brings on that psychological feel to it. Is at the end of the movie when they pretty much reverted back into a classical nightmare movie with, with John Saxon, essentially just reprising his role as Nancy's dad. Nancy,
Yeah,
and ends up becoming of Heather Langenkamp, things like that. But I mean, that's what the entire movie was. Is everybody was essentially having a psychological issue because of this malevolent demon.
yeah.
Now, let me give a little bit of praise and a little bit of hatred to Miko Hughes. So, I think he is a creepy fucking kid in that movie. The never sleep again part where he's like all but like just possessed is interesting. But what I do like is that he took the kid role and completely outdid Nightmare 5. Like there was
Yeah,
no
yeah,
nonsense. It was again going back into the fourth wall break. But I mean, he has pretty much his childhood career was of this creepy fucking kid. He played, I think it was at like 3 or 4 years old in Pet Cemetery.
yeah. Thought I recognised him.
Which the funny part there is, he was a kid that got ran over, and in Ice Nine Kills music video for Funeral Derangements, which was made off of Pet Cemetery, they started it with that scene, and the guy that was driving the truck that killed the kid in that music video was Miko Hughes. So it was kind of funny
Really
just to look at
attention to
that.
detail, yeah.
Right. I mean, he played in Kindergarten Cop 2, Spawn, things like that, and you're not just getting some like nasty looking fucking kid. You have somebody that even as a kid, he's starting to fill out his resume quite nice.
Yeah, even though like he's a cute kid and stuff, like he easily portrays this awful kid character stereotype in horror movies, like the creepy one who's always coming up with something that's disturbing, or he's doing something that's disturbing. And I think that's honestly, it deserves so much praise, because in this movie I loved him as Dylan. He was a bit shaky every now and then, but overall I thought his performance was fantastic. Like, this kid's got range.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. And even down to the little details. Obviously, a kid that age would feel comfort in stuffed animals, things like that. And I mean, that was a big thing. His dinosaur Rex was his saving grace throughout the.
Rex is by far the best character in this movie. Poor Rex, honest to God, we'll talk about a hero. Not only did he defend little Dylan from Freddy, he also fucking, got the scar wounds to like show that he's so brave. Oh, what a hero!
just
Rex,
just
my
all
man,
about
wherever
that
you are.
protection.
Yeah, he's so cute as well. I remember thinking, oh my God, when I first watched this, I can't believe. I think it must have been about 7, and I saw Rex. I was like, oh, I want it. And it's that kind of thing that makes you stick. It's like that type of memory that you associate with certain things and stuff. Like, it's good that we have that. I mean, it's not good that me as a 7-year-old kid was watching this horror film, but it's stuff like that that makes you fall in love with movies and has a long-lasting impression. And I think that's where my love for this film comes from. It's mainly Rex.
Yeah, it was. It was just this definitely ran down. Something that had never been seen before in the franchise. Up to date, it hadn't gotten ruined by a remake. There was nothing, and up until this point, there was no more Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, because they killed Freddy off in part 6, and they even discussed about how it wouldn't be able to bring him back for a new Nightmare movie in this real world in Hollywood in New Nightmare. So I think that was kind of cool how they addressed that, and they didn't just skim over it, how this is just another sequel. They actually we discussed what this film is. It's not part of the continuity of the original timeline. It's set in stone as its own story with obvious links to what it was, but taken out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it wasn't like a drop in your face. They acknowledged it, sure, and then he's just back. It again, because they led that psychological track, if you will. That was something cool, because even from the very beginning, Heather was still upset she was getting prank phone calls, which I would, if I remember correctly, that was a real thing, that she was getting prank phone calls.
Yeah.
And then it bothered her, and then you just kind of see this descent into madness, and then it ends up being like, yeah, okay, it's wrapped into a movie, but there was still that terrifying, like, who the fuck's breaking down, because all these people are like experiencing similar things.
Yeah.
And then Robert Englund just kind of goes out in the lamb and fucking leaves town.
After painting this fucking scary nightmare picture.
I mean, in all fairness, if somebody was trying to explain exactly what I was painting and nobody saw it, I'd probably leave too.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Don't want to get sent to the loony bin.
exactly. Like, right there is not what I want to stick around for. So, looking at some of these reviews is, I mean, rightfully so, the majority of them are phenomenal. There's one right here, it's a 2-star review, and it reads, I've just finished watching all the original Nightmare on Elm Streets, and this is the final film of the 7. Which, no. I mean, I guess yes, because you have a crossover, but no. It got pretty good reviews, all things considered, and I was expecting a great film, but I was left wanting more. The story is unique and original, basically while Wes Craven is filming a new Freddy film. No, he's writing it. Freddy appears to have come to life in the real world and attacking actors. I don't think they were really attacking actors. They attacked production staff and I think Heather.
Yeah.
But good. It's this classic boxing matches too. I think they're trolling everybody, but whatever.
Yeah, because that doesn't, like, from the basis of that review, it doesn't sound like it's being negative at all. It's just saying be left wanting more.
It's I think the minor inconsistencies, but if I'm giving the benefit of the doubt here as well, if they had never seen it before and they were just railing down this collection, I mean, maybe those type of things, maybe they weren't truly watching. It was great to see Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon make their return to the series after last seeing them in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And the writers definitely brought the blood back, but the meta storyline and dark humor didn't really do it for me. I much preferred the craziness of a regular, straightforward Nightmare on Elm Street story.
Regular and straightforward. There's nothing regular and straightforward about the sequels 4, 5, and 6. This is pure straightforward. This is a straightforward film. And the dark humor, yeah, it's not as frequent as in the sequels, but it's still there and it works so much more better. I think there's one line where towards the end, Freddy has got he's got Heather Langenkamp's face heading towards this like pit of snakes, and he's like, pick a pet for the Rugrat bitch. And I was like, oh my god, that is so good.
Yeah, it's just I felt like it was going back to roots, but it really outdid itself.
Yeah, I think it's the quality over the quantity. Like, there's not that many dark humor jokes in it, but the ones that are really hit and land, and it's a home run with every single one of them, I think. Like, when he's got Julie in the hospital and he's, like, going to Dylan, ever played Skin the Cat, to this, what is he, like a 7-year-old, 6-year-old boy who's watching his babysitter getting murdered right in front of him, and Freddy's just having a laugh about it. Come on, that's funny.
and I think Miko Hughes handled that like phenomenally when he had his little fucking meltdown.
But then he turns after, like, obviously he saw all this, and then he turns to the camera and screams. I'm like, why would... I get it that it's like meta and stuff, but if he's turning to the camera to scream, then that's like, even though the fourth wall's broken down, that's
almost acknowledging that there's a camera there and that a movie's actually
taking
happening.
A wrecking ball to, and it takes you out of it just for that split second. And I think that's like one of the main minor critiques I have for this, but it's still, that scene's, it's just one of my favorites.
So, continuing with this review, because I was just skimming a little bit, and I'm almost getting frustrated now. So, let's see. I much preferred the craziness of a regular, straightforward Nightmare on Elm Street story, even though this was more coherent than the later entries, which, okay, there's a crossover and a fucking remake. So, sure. But and this part fucking gets me. It had a very Scream-like feel to it, and apparently, from what I understand, this film was seen as the predecessor to that. No, it's two different fucking universes.
Yeah, this film obviously helped Scream become what it is, but comparing the two is so wrong on so many levels, because I consider New Nightmare to be like this. It is a brilliant film, but Scream's obviously my favourite film of all time, so it's just there's no comparing those two. They're on the same level, but it's a completely different race.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's very very few negative comments that I really have for it, and even for the things that seem like a little whacked out. So, for instance, when the freeway, when Freddy lifts Dylan up, that really pushes the bounds of reality. But again, if their whole purpose of this is Heather's losing her shit,
Yeah,
it makes sense that would happen. So I can't even be upset at that.
yeah, because even the hospital staff are concerned for Dylan's safety over how Heather's acting and stuff.
Mhm.
Because obviously she's talking about this man who's obviously the star of these films she's in, attacking him in real life, and obviously Dylan's been introduced to this. So really, that if anyone talking about that would seem fucking crazy to you. I mean, obviously you have got Dylan being lifted over the freeway and stuff, which is such a brilliant scene. Like when you've got all those Freddys charging at the side and stuff, it's nightmare fuel. But yeah, it's of course she's going to be fucking losing her sanity. She's seeing her son being lifted in the air.
That and in all fairness, you know, if you really look into that real world aspect, you know, she had just lost her husband, which Dylan lost his dad. So that, you know, just the stress of that is enough to make people lose their shit sometimes. And then,
Yeah,
you know, all the stresses of being, you know, an actor. Now you have a studio coming back at you with this idea, which they had recruited your late husband to help them with, and you knew nothing about this, and now he's
yeah.
dead. You know, so that
Especially considering, you know, all the hassle that she's been getting with the phone calls and the letters.
exactly, and I think that's what, like you said, those finer details. It made it more of a storyline that to be felt a part of, rather than we're just sitting here watching a movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those films that you're either going to love it or hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are if the people who don't like it, I think they just compare it to what came before it, and they had expectations that it was going to be like that, and obviously they got something completely different. Fuck, it's completely different from the original, but it works.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Um. Yeah. So I almost feel that it would be horrifying to really critique this film, because it did so many things right, that to even begin to start pinpointing things that might have been wrong is horrible.
I mean, I can think of a couple, but they're not like major affecting how I overall enjoy this film. I think one of them really is, so do you know where Dylan's going? Well, when Heather meets, is it Wes she meets at the park, and Dylan's playing on this little climbing frame, and it's like a rocket, and he climbs to the top, and he's reaching out for God.
John Saxon.
John Saxon, that's it. And then this overly dramatic piece of music plays over the top of it. But J. Peter Robinson does a brilliant work with the score for this movie. But it's that piece of music while Dylan's reaching up, looking for God and stuff. I don't know if it's meant to be comical or if it's meant to be taken serious, but the way the music was just made it too serious that it was funny, and I don't think that was the intention. So that's like a main critique for me, but it's nothing that takes away my enjoyment or pleasure from this movie.
Absolutely. the cemetery scene.
Oh my god.
I thought that was beautiful. Just and I think it was beautiful because it was so out there.
Yeah. And you've got all these cast of characters coming back. Like you got, is it Tuesday Night who makes a little cameo, and Rod from the original makes a cameo, and it's just so, it's a nice nod. It's people coming back respecting Wes Craven, if you think about it, really respecting his work for what they've done for him and what he's done for them within the Nightmare on Elm Street saga. Because really, he's greenlit these people's careers by having them star in these films. And I think that's just such a beautiful tribute as well to Wes. It's kind of like the tribute in the new Scream, where they have that party for Wes and stuff. It's just... yeah.
So, I'm not proud of this, and I probably shouldn't bring this the fuck up on a channel or on a discussion where we discuss horror movies. But... So I went to see the new Scream in theaters, and for anybody, you and I alike, it had a lot of homage to the originals, but at the same time, obviously, it went its different way with a requel.
Yeah.
But I went with my wife, who had not seen any Scream movies, so like for the I think it was 2 weeks leading up to this date, we went through 1 through 4. Everything, and I got her into that whodunit mentality. But she, when they got to that part, it was obviously they had some undertones to it that it was for Wes Craven, but obviously the character's name was Wes. But at the very end, when they put up, the black screen and they had for Wes, she fucking thought that was referencing the character, and I had to explain to her why that makes absolutely no sense and who the fuck Wes Craven was, and I was almost disappointed that I had to do that. But no, I mean, yeah, I thought that kind of stuff was awesome. I mean, yeah, if that, the return of some of them, even Jamie Kennedy's someone's goofy ass dad is kicking us out. In Scream, or all these people wanting to come back, paycheck or not.
Yeah, it's just one of those beautiful moments, and it's so touching. It's like one of those things you don't get to see behind the camera, and it's so heartwarming. God, we're sounding like we're going to start crying in a minute. We'll start tattoos, but no, really, you can see the impact that Wes Craven has, and you can really see it within this movie. Obviously, everything has a link if you think about it.
Yeah.
You can see so much of this work and how he's inspired other directors, and I think a big part of that might have been to be with this movie and how different it was and how against the norm it was, because it wasn't like any of the other Nightmare films. It wasn't like any of his previous films. It was just something so different.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at the overall ratings for New Nightmare, it looks like IMDb rated it a 6.4 out of 10, which, although I don't necessarily agree with that, I'm happy it's not lower.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes, this one's phenomenal, that it was 80%, and Metacritic was, I guess, roughly about the same thing as IMDb, is 64%. Overall, Google users rated 87%.
Yeah, I can see why it's got good ratings, because it's just phenomenal. It really is.
Oh, yeah. So I guess with that, unless you have anything else to add, we should start our ratings.
Yeah, I just want to give a massive shout out to Tracy Middenoff, who plays Julie. I think she does such a fantastic job in that role as well. She actually feels like a caring, genuine babysitter for this boy who's not even a son. She looks after Dylan like she would. Like, she's a big sister kind of way, and I think so sweet. And their relationship throughout this movie is just, it's so heartwarming. You actually care about this character, even though she doesn't get much screen time. Whatever she does, it's golden, because she's so developed. She's got this relationship. She's got a relationship with Heather, and she's so well written, and I love her in anything she does. I loved her in the Scream TV series. as well. I think she was fantastic. And David Newson, who played Chase, I think he's a good actor as well.
Oh yeah.
His death scene was, very suspenseful. Like, when's Freddy gonna, do it? Especially with the knives coming out of the car seat and then just out of nowhere, just shooting up and plunging into him.
I think what I like the best out of that is that it had that Nightmare 5 feeling. Even though it didn't go that far, it still had that feeling like, okay, watch this.
Yeah, because it wasn't executed as a comical joke. It was a serious situation, wasn't it? Whereas Nightmare 5, he had fun with it, and even though it was like balls to the walls with humour and, just bonkers, Nightmare 5's death with Dan, it did look good, and it was a good scene. But whereas this one with Chase, a more grounded, down to earth character, it hits different as well, because obviously you've got to know him a bit more, and you've got to know his relationship with Heather and Dylan, and it's just that bit more impactful.
And I think because they started out with this kind-hearted dad that had Heather and Dylan on this set, I think that's what really led into actually feeling for his death.
Yeah, and then that carries over into obviously into the funeral scene where Heather's torn and she's on the phone to all her friends about how she's devastated by it. And then you've got Julie's death as well, which adds more impact, because if you think about it, with Chase out of the picture, Heather needs more support, so Julie's going to have to step up and be there more for Dylan and her herself. And then obviously when Julie dies, and what is the best callback to Tina's death, it was, and do you know what, since we're talking about Julie's death, I'm like, I love this. I like how they shown a different version of Tina's death with Julie, because obviously in not New Nightmare, this is New Nightmare, in the original, in 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street, we see Tina's death, but we only see it from Rod's perspective, where Freddy's not there, and she's just being dragged up the wall and, cut and everything. Whereas in this one, we see it from Dylan's, who actually sees Freddy, and we see what Freddy's doing and how he's dragging, Julie up the wall and skinning her. And it's, again, these details, it's fresh take. It's, even though it's recycling something that's been done before, it's giving it a more different stylized view, and I just love it. I love it.
Now, there is one thing thinking about it, and I have to agree with the part about feeling like you wanted more, but I guess it's kind of more of an incomplete feeling. So at the end of the movie, thinking about it now, at the end of the movie, it turns out that everything wraps up. Nothing really happened. It was just essentially life imitating art, or art imitating life, however you want to look at it. But we don't find out if any of the deaths really happened, if... You know what I mean? Because it's not... Chase's wasn't... Not that it wasn't a problem, but it wasn't anything that really drew attention. However, Julie's was. And in really anywhere you're at, you're absolutely not going to be a part of that and walk free. That's not... And then just to end on reading a script. So, I mean, I guess that's the only thing, the complaint I have, but again, the overall aspect of this film is just, it's fucking phenomenal.
Oh yeah. I'm not as mad at the ending as you are. Like, I do get where your point of view is coming from, but I just think it's such a nice, beautiful way to end it. They really should have ended the franchise there. No matter, like, even though I love Freddy versus Jason, it's a guilty pleasure. I think this was such a perfect ending, and an ending to Freddy. Like, we taken him out of the movie, and then we put him into the real world, and then we killed him off, and which is, a great fight sequence between, Dylan, Heather, and Freddy. It is so well done. It's so well choreographed. It's suspenseful. It's horrific. It's got the elements of dark comedy, dark humor, which really mixes it up a bit better than how, any standoff with Freddy's gone, and it just adds a new level to it. And for Heather and to Dylan to come tumbling out of the bed and read it in, a finished draft of the new script that Wes is working on. It's confusing of how it ends, but it's wrapped up so nicely that, you realise that Heather, she's destined to play this Nancy role, and it's never going to escape her.
Right.
So it's like the choice that Wes Craven gives her. In order to defeat this Freddy, she has to play Nancy one last time, and she takes on that role. And I think that's the best way to end it, because she's took on this role for the last time to defeat Freddy, and she did it, and she put up the fucking best fight she's ever given.
Which I did like the transition between the bed to the vent and then into Freddy's realm.
Oh yeah, but doesn't that look like something you'd want to fucking go on as well?
Oh my god, yeah. When you go from satin sheets to hard metal, and it's just like that. That's fun. Like,
you got branches sticking out as well, so you twat in your face as you're
right.
going down. And then you fall into like this massive pool at the bottom. Oh come on, that looks so fun.
Right.
See, this is why we need a horror-based theme park, so we can have shit like that.
Well, interestingly enough, not that to my knowledge there's not a legitimate horror theme park, but in California, I think it's California, Universal theme park has Halloween Horror Nights, where a lot of their attractions are all horror-based. They had, like a year or two ago, was House of a Thousand Corpses, like all kinds of crazy shit. And I have not gone yet, and it's depressing. I hope I can make that happen this year, but I guess we'll see.
Come on, COVID, don't fuck us about again.
Yeah, right? Like fuck. But anyhow, one last thing I would like to touch just on this movie itself is it had a budget which is relatively normal for this franchise. It had a budget of $8 million, which honestly,
that's good. It's good for this franchise.
Minus the ending and then some other aspects, I'm surprised that it's actually this high. Because even though it's like a high quality video, there's a lot more realism to it, which kind of leads to less of what should be less of a costly effect. But I'm sure that also takes into account, actors' salaries and things like that. And you have Heather Langenkamp, which there's no way she's coming in with a low price, especially not as the main character.
And Robert Englund as well.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because this franchise would be nothing without him as well.
Right.
So obviously his price must have been steep.
I wonder actually.
I mean, it did only make 19.4 million at the box office,
which is depressing.
It is so depressing because this was such a good film. There's so much high qualityness to it that outshines anything that came before it.
Robert Englund, actually, his net worth is a lot less than what I think. His net worth is $16 million.
Freddy Krueger?
Yep.
What the fuck?
Yeah, well, and I think what's even more upsetting about his net worth is that's like everything. That's vehicles, houses, bank accounts. So that's legitimately his entirety is $16 million. But I guess, maybe it makes sense because he doesn't really do much of anything anymore, right?
No. Well, I mean, I think the most recent thing I've seen him in is that episode of The Goldbergs where Beverly has a nightmare and he's there as Freddy Krueger.
He was in Scream Queen in 19. Which that's even a lot sooner than what I would have thought.
Need to keep up to date with him, I think. I think he talented actor, of course. I think any role he's in, he plays it perfectly. He plays it exactly how he needs to be. I know he had a voice cameo in one of the Call of Duty games. I think it was fairly recent. Well, it might not be. When I think of fairly recent, I think of like 2014 was like 2 years ago.
Let's see here. Oh, you can actually pay for Robert Englund. Oh, nope, I lied. He's not taking requests, but he was on Cameo.
Oh my god, that'd be the best.
So let's see. He had a cameo in Call of Duty Black Ops. Robert Englund is one of the 4 survivors in Call of the Dead. His player indicator color is blue. This is shared with Nikolai. He is part of George A. Romero's film crew, along with Sarah Michelle Gellar, Danny Trejo, and Michael Rooker. It is unknown what happened to him and the other celebrities.
I think he's just fantastic.
It's wild, though, just to think that he's 74 years old.
I know, for a man like that, he must have started. Well, yeah, he must have been like in his 20s, 30s when he did, Freddy and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, well,
yeah, just stands the test of time.
Well, I don't know. He was born. What? Fucking. In the 40s, right? Yeah, he was born 1947.
Oh God, so. Yeah, he would have been about 37 then. First Nightmare.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah, because the first Nightmare came out in 84, so yeah. Which is, I mean, it makes him even more impressive when you really think about it. That, what? I think Freddy vs. Jason came out in
2003?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Let's see here. He would have been 56 playing Freddy and fucking people up. It's like, oh my gosh. But I mean, with that, if you don't have anything else to add, I think we should roll right into our reviews.
Okay. So for acting, I'd give this a 9. I thought everyone did a phenomenal job. The plot is, I think, my favourite from any Nightmare film. It's one of my favourite plots in any film, so that's a perfect 10 for me. Cinematography, there's so many beautiful shots. It looks so different. It looks cleaner, but it also has this grungy sense to it when it gets deeper into the film. So I give it a 7. I think there's some great set pieces. Characters, again, some of the best. All of them really pull at your heartstrings in the dire situation, so that's a 9. Deaths, even though there's only a body count of, I think, 4. 4? Yeah, 4. Well, you've got the 2 people working on the film, then you've got Chase and then you have Julie. 4.
Okay.
5 if you want to include Freddy. But the first 2 are just, obviously, they're not really shown in graphic apart from in the Nightmare. And then, obviously, got Chase and Julie, which bumps it up to, I think, a 5 overall for the deaths, because there's not many of them, but the 2 that I've ever done that you see proper are just so superbly shot and executed to perfection, and they really get at the emotion. I mean, gore, there's not that much, but there's enough to keep you satisfied, so I'd give that a 6.
There's only one that I disagree with, that I have a difference in opinion with, and it's going to be the kills. And I'm actually torn. I part of me wants to give it a 4, and part of me wants to give it a 6. And the reason for that is, for the 6 is definitely Julie's kill, because like you said earlier, it paid homage to Tina. It was phenomenal, and then just like the overall fear level of it, because you had this malevolent figure there that's actually doing the dirty work. But I'm almost torn on giving it a 4 as well, because the first 2 deaths are immediate, and it's weird. It kind of goes from, like, you start off in what then you find out is a dream state, and it all starts to kind of curveball. But we don't know who these people are other than they're just
Just
film
working on the
producers.
film, yeah.
Exactly.
And
So
I think the host of Dead Meat, James A. Janice, he commented on one of the deaths of the producers or the people who were, one of the first two kills, saying that it looks like they've just been lightly pricked with one of Freddy's knives. And after hearing that, that's all I can say. And I totally agree with him.
oh my gosh. So what what would you give the overall rating?
Right. So what would I give it? I'd give this film an 8 out of 10. It's not something I watch all the time, but when I do, I appreciate it for everything it is because I love it so much. But I feel like if I watched it too often, I'd find things that I don't necessarily agree with more, and that's what's stopping me from, having a continuous watch. So, yeah, I think an 8 out of 10 is just a perfect summary of this film.
I excuse me. I have to agree. There's something about it that, not even so much just to be able to nitpick it. There's something about it that doesn't make it a top tier. I want to watch this all the time, but at the same time, it's a guilty pleasure
Yeah,
that you enjoy. You don't feel bad about it afterwards. That you enjoy retaking it.
it's just one of those that is so refreshing after the shitstorm you've had to endure. If you're doing a marathon of the Elm Street franchise, it's just one of those things that you get excited for. You watch for bad because you know the good's coming up.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean I don't disagree at all about 8 out of 10. Now, coming up next is a film that I really enjoy, and I think mainly is because it's the most grotesque out of the entire series. That, and it brings in Jason Voorhees, who is by far Friday the 13th is my favorite franchise entirely. So, Callum, do you want to take a break quick, or you want to hop right in?
It is up to you.
Let's do a quick break. I'm out of coffee, and then we'll come back.
Fantastic.
All right. So I apologize for the little delay. Unfortunately, I did get a call from Mr. HorrorRant himself. He unfortunately had to attend to an emergency situation. So with that, we are going to end this here. I would like to thank everybody that came out, anybody that's still supporting us. It's phenomenal. Our next episode is going to be Thursday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 p.m. EU time. And at that point, we will discuss Freddy vs. Jason, which is by far my favorite film, as well as the ungodly remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. So, again, thank you everybody for coming out. Reminder to anybody that is watching now or will watch, tonight at midnight, I will be doing a live release stream of Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. So I hope to see everybody there.